Hello everyone, today is 27th of August still. Now it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my second update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that was reported by Russian media since my first update or since this morning. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you in this update, although I will start with a short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield, because in last couple of hours several sources reported about further progress of the Russian armed forces in Pokrovsk direction, and to be more precise, according to latest reports, settlement Memrik on the southern flank of Pokrovsk sector is under full Russian control now. In the morning's update, I mentioned this settlement and I reported that Russian forces entered this village, but now we have reports that this settlement is under full Russian control. If we take a look at the geography of the battles in the southern sector of the Pokrovsk, we can clearly see that seems like my prediction was correct when I say that most likely Russian troops will conduct simultaneous attacks towards south on the southern flanks and also simultaneously towards Pokrovsk, and that's exactly what is happening. And I guess it's only a matter of days possibly, and Russian troops will establish control over their Galicinovka, Zhelaya Firster, and or Zhelaya Первая and Ukrainsk settlements on the first stage of this assault to basically neutralize Kiev regime's forces in this artillery pocket here from Krasnogorovka to Memrik. And then it is highly likely, in my reading of the big picture, that Russian troops will further intensify pressure on Kiev regime's forces on the most northern parts of Krasnogorovka, and probably we will see Russian advances towards Ostraya settlement and towards Alexandropol here, so that entire this area eventually will become under full Russian control. That's been said, by the way, this is not all. Russian troops, according to Defense Ministry, established full control over the Kalinova settlement. I reported about it quite a number of days ago, and today Russian Defense Ministry confirmed this information, and also Russian Defense Ministry confirmed information that Russian armed forces established control over the Orlovka settlement, which is also not surprising for our community because I reported about progress of Russian armed forces in Orlovka, Zhuravka directions for at least several days ago, I believe. Also, by the way, more and more confirmations that Russian armed forces established full control over their Marinovka settlement and also over their Novogrodovka settlement. Kiev regime forces basically confirmed information that they withdraw from this settlement, which is under full Russian control. Some sources are arguing that maybe 80-90% of this settlement is under Russian control, and Kiev regime troops still have some foothold in the vicinity of their village, but I'm a bit skeptical of that. Most likely Kiev regime troops just withdraw completely towards Sukhoy Yar and Lisovka, and obviously these two settlements going to be next direction of the Russian offensive, this local scale or sectoral scale, I will say, even offensive operations. That's been said, let's go through some additional news now. And we have a statement from a governor of the Belgorod region, Vyacheslav Gladkov, who stated that situation on the border of the on the borderline between Russia and Kiev-controlled territory in the Belgorod region is very difficult, but under operational control of the Russian armed forces. There was reports, by the way, that Kiev regime tried in two directions during the previous 24 hours to cross the border and enter a couple of villages on the borderline. According to Russian sources, all these attacks were repelled, and the Kiev regime was unable to establish control over anything, basically. Kiev regime troops were forced to withdraw and regrouped. But yet again, situation is difficult, and I would not be surprised at all if in upcoming days we will see additional attempts of the Kyiv regime to cross border with its terrorists and their Nazis in Belgorod direction, and possibly even in Bryansk direction. But it is good to know that Russian side is locked and ready basically to deal with the enemy. Also, we have interesting statements from somewhat interesting, at least, statements from head of general staff of the Kyiv regime. TASS news agency is reporting on that, and during the televised press conference of the Syrsky in a rather TV station or TV company, Syrsky admitted that one of their main goals of invasion in the Kursk region for Kyiv regime was to force Russian armed forces to redeploy some significant number of troops from other sectors of the front line towards the Kursk region, especially from Pokrovsk direction. And Syrsky admitted that even though some number of troops was redeployed from other sectors of the front line towards the Kursk, Russian armed forces still very much are focused on Pokrovsk direction, and this intervention or this invasion of the Kursk region did not really slow down Russian progress in this area, which is factually correct, by the way. You know my take on all this topic of invasion of the Kyiv regime and the NATO into Kursk region of the Russian Federation. In my understanding, Kyiv regime forces had two main tasks. First is to reach Kurchatov city and establish control over the Kursk nuclear power plant. And second is exactly what Syrsky is saying or admitting, to force Russian armed forces to redeploy significant number of troops from other sectors of the front line towards Kursk region, especially from New York, Toretsk and Pokrovsk directions. And Kyiv regime and NATO failed in both these areas because, as we all see, Kyiv regime troops are locked basically now in this trap in the Kursk salient and are unable to basically move anywhere. Only way they have right now is to retreat, to leave Kursk salient. Otherwise, they will be decimated, as several brigades of the Kyiv regime already have been. So they definitely failed in their task to reach Kurchatov city, and obviously Kyiv regime and NATO failed to force Russian side to redeploy troops from any of their sectors, basically, to redeploy significant number of troops from any of the sectors, especially from New York, Toretsk or Pokrovsk sectors. And we are receiving information on daily basis, literally on daily basis, about further progress of the Russian armed forces in these areas. So interesting that Syrsky is admitting basically that they failed with this Kursk invasion. Let's continue with some other news. And today Russian Defense Ministry shared with public update on situation in the Kursk region. And according to latest reports, Kyiv regime forces lost in the Kursk region in just last 24 hours about 400 military personnel and 30 units of different type of armored vehicles, including HIMARS multi-launch rocket system. Overall, since the beginning of this Kursk invasion by Kyiv regime forces and the NATO forces, including NATO mercenaries, Russian militaries neutralize more than 6,600 Nazis and terrorists that invaded Kursk region. Also, by the way, 34 infantry fighting vehicles, 73 tanks, 432 different type of armored vehicles, carriers and trucks, also 62 armored personnel carriers, 45 artillery pieces, 201 motor vehicles, 13 multi-launch rocket systems, including 4 HIMARS MLRS systems, 5 air defense systems, 2 radars, 9 radio-electronic warfare system, 5 engineering equipment, including 1 for demining, UR-77, and 2 engineering vehicles for mining of their territory. So significant losses on part of Kyiv regime in manpower and military vehicles, armored vehicles. Also, we have a report from RIA Novosti that Russian armed forces during the day conducted 12 strikes on points of concentration of the Kyiv regime in the Sumy region, and of course these strikes are connected with the ongoing clearing operation in the Kursk region by Russian forces. And according to this information, strikes were conducted on points of concentration of reserves of 47th, 54th, 80th, and 82nd mechanized brigades, and also, 80 and 82nd assault brigades and airborne brigades, and also 1st brigade of the National Guard. Also points of concentrations of the 101st, 103rd, and 107th brigades were targeted. So Russian Air Force is very active. Russian aerospace forces are very active, of course, in this operation to basically decimate last reserves that Kyiv regime had. And as I said from very beginning of this Kursk invasion by Kyiv regimes and the NATO forces, I said straight away that this invasion is the beginning of the end of Kyiv regime's armed forces as a more or less capable entity. Also, this is the beginning of the end of Kyiv regime itself and the political career of Zelensky and many of his criminal associates. And also, by the way, this invasion of the Kursk region is clearly beginning of the end of Ukraine itself as a state or a quasi-state as it was since the collapse of Soviet Union. Let's continue. And also RIA Novosti is reporting that a criminal case was opened against so-called journalists of the Western propaganda outlets that illegally cross a border between Kyiv controlled territory and the Kursk region of the Russian Federation. And we are talking about, I'll give you names, by the way. One is so-called journalist of the Deutsche Welle, which is a German propaganda outlet. And name of that person is Nicolas Simona. And also criminal case was opened against a so-called journalist of Kyiv regime's propaganda outlet, 1+1, Natalia Viktorovna. Viktorovna usually is a middle name, but that's what RIA Novosti is reporting. So maybe this is a surname for this individual that illegally crossed the Russian border and will be in a wanted list, I guess. And if they think this is nothing, then they will find out that it's a big deal if you are in a wanted list of the Russian Federation, because you will face consequences. You broke Russian law, and one way or another, today or day after, but eventually you will face the consequences. TASS news agency is also reporting about statements of the Sergei Narishkin, head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, and according to him, Moscow is not believing of any, Moscow distrusts or has no trust to any statements that comes from the collective West, especially from their leading or dominating, let's say, countries in the collective West that are trying to distance themselves from this invasion in the Kursk region. Moscow is absolutely confirmed that West, collective West, was involved in this crime that is committed against Russia. And I believe Russian ambassador in US directly stated that Moscow has no doubts that US was directly involved in this invasion of the Russian Federation by Kiev regime's forces and the NATO forces. Basically, call them mercenaries or call them instructors, whatever. But it's eventually military personnel of the collective West, NATO. However, in whichever way you're going to describe it, but factually speaking, those armed personnel is directed by NATO, obviously. Also, Kommersant newspaper is reporting that there was an article in Politico, according to which Ukraine is planning to ask Washington about Ukraine is planning to ask, or Kiev regime is planning to ask Washington for a support to target number of targets deep inside the Russian territory, and simultaneously Kiev regime is kind of asking permission to use US, in this particular case, long-range weapon systems to conduct strikes deep inside Russia. And once again, dear friends, whenever I see this type of information, I always say that this is clearly media psyop to basically generate plausible deniability in hands for Washington or collective West, because US long-range weapon systems already being used to strike deep inside Russian territory, including in the Kursk region, by the way. Including in the Kursk region. And if anybody has some illusions that Washington is somehow stopping Kiev regime to use HIMARS, for example, multi-launch rocket systems to strike deep inside Russia, they are mistaken. HIMARS already being used, and I remind you, dear friends, that ATACMS long-range missiles are also launched from HIMARS system, right? So this information is a clear demonstration how, or one of the demonstration of one of the ways how Washington and the Western ruling class in general is generating this illusion of plausible deniability if they are not involved in these strikes deep inside Russia. But of course they are. Of course they are, and there will be time for, there will be time when Western ruling class will pay heavy price for the crimes they committed against us. I mean, it is what it is. And they are very lucky, basically. I mean, Western ruling elites, whoever they are, real rulers of the West, they are so lucky that not am I president of Russian Federation, because I will do some huge favor for humanity, and I will make sure all those so-called elites of the West are neutralized by any means necessary. And when I say it, I actually mean it. So if I was Russian president, Western ruling class would be neutralized by now. I mean, it is what it is. I see Western ruling class as an existential threat for humanity, for all of humanity, and I believe it is a duty for all decent human beings on this planet to do whatever they can to neutralize this threat. Am I correct? And dear friends, before I continue, let me remind you that this small media project of mine with several channels on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram, is completely subscriber funded, and I will be immensely grateful if you will also consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal or Boosty platform, or by subscribing to my Patreon page, on which I have regular extra content. All the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And dear friends, I will just notice that monthly subscription on my Patreon starts from $5, and then you can choose whatever level you want to support this project and my work. And yes, let's continue with some other news. Hopefully sound is okay, by the way. Unfortunately, lately there was some issues with sound, also with lighting, by the way, but I will deal with all this technical stuff. It will just take little time. Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that Kiev is preparing more chemical weapon strikes, according to Moscow. And this is definitely breaking news, I will say, because of the topics that Russian high-ranking military official was sharing with the public today. So let's go through this news. Ukrainian forces are set to increase their use of chemical weapons by making specialized shells compatible with their Western donated artillery systems. The Russian commander responsible for defenses against weapons of mass destruction claimed on Tuesday, General Igor Kirillov was briefing their media on the work done by his division in the context of the Ukraine conflict. He said Kiev's troops remain a threat in terms of violating the Chemical Weapons Convention, CVC. Operative intelligence suggests that Ukrainian troops are preparing chemical shells compatible with the Western-produced artillery systems, he said, citing military documents recovered from captured Ukrainian positions. He shared several pages from a Ukrainian manual on the use of US-designed 155mm self-prepared M109 howitzer in A3GN and A4 configurations. Their handbook includes instructions on how to distinguish and handle munitions with their chemical payloads. Kirillov, which is extremely serious, isn't it, by the way? Extremely serious. If Kiev regime is not using and not intend to use chemical weapons, if Washington is not participating in this crime, then why on earth this Kiev regime's forces are receiving manual how to distinguish ordinary shell from a chemical shell? I mean, you tell me. Kirillov said also that Russian chemical weapons experts had identified more than 400 apparent cases of banned arms being used during the ongoing conflict. He expects more to emerge, considering the multiple provocations involving toxic chemicals and attempts on the lives of the officials in new Russian regions. Among the evidence, the general also reported the delivery to Ukraine of roughly 500 tons of tetranolamine, I mean, whatever the name is of this chemical substance, tetranolamine compound listed under Schedule 3 of the CVC, and CVC is a Chemical Weapons Convention, since it can be used to manufacture nitrogen mustard gas chemical weapon. Ukrainian firm imported over 160 tons of the compound in July alone, and Russia found no evidence that the chemical was intended for peaceful purposes, Kirillov also stated. So this is very serious, by the way. This is very serious. US, NATO basically, and the Western ruling class is engaged also in not just nuclear terrorism, but also in chemical terrorism. That's what it is, because we all understand that Kiev regime makes no step without authorization from the Washington and the London, especially from the Washington and London, right? So very significant topic, and one should be ready for any possible provocation from these criminals, terrorists, Nazis that are formally in charge of Kiev regime or Kiev controlled territory, but in reality we all know who is in charge there. And those people definitely are not staying in Kiev, they are in Washington and London. Somewhat in Langley also, which is a housing headquarters of their CIA, obviously. RIA Novosti is also reporting that Russian armed forces conducted a strike on airfields of the Kiev regime with their Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. And according to Defense Ministry, all targets were reached and their task was achieved. And earlier there was reports, by the way, about strikes on Starokonstantinov area, which is a Khmelnytsky region, where airfield is located, and that airfield quite often being mentioned whenever talks are about US-made F-16s. So who knows? Maybe these strikes are connected with a hunt on US supplied F-16s, not US supplied, but US made F-16s that was supplied formally to Kiev regime by NATO member states. In this particular case, we are talking about European NATO member state. Also, by the way, TASS news agency is reporting that, Kiev regime's armed forces basically acknowledged that they withdraw from Novogrodovka settlement in DPR, and I already spoke about it. I'll just show you on the map where this Novogrodovka is once again. So this is the Novogrodovka, by the way, and Russian troops took control over the settlement with lightning speed, basically. Very few, if anybody at all, expected this rapid advance of Russian troops in this settlement, but it is what it is. Russian troops are in control of Novogrodovka also. Let's continue with some more news. Yet again, report from TASS news agency that Russian Defense Ministry confirmed basically that Orlovka settlement, also on Pokrovsk sector, was liberated. No surprises for us, because I reported about Russian progress in Orlovka direction for quite a while ago at this point. Also, very interesting statement from Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation that Russian doctrine on use of nuclear weapons have been specified, and work is done on this direction, which is important, by the way. Earlier, I reported that several high-ranking Russian officials announced that work will be done on Russian nuclear doctrine, and I guess process is underway, and in relatively short time, this doctrine will be modernized or adjust to current situation in this world and the current threats that Russia is facing. Very significant news, by the way, very significant, and also warning for Western ruling class that they cannot continue escalating with Russia forever with impunity. At some point, there will be response. A response that Western ruling class would not be able to ignore. And that's my interpretation, by the way. Kommersant newspaper is also reporting that head of International Atomic Energy Agency visited the Kursk nuclear power plant with a number of other experts from IAEA, which is formally UN body, but in reality run by CIA, basically, run by Western ruling class. And this visit has already finished. I saw right before I start recording this update, I saw on one of the channels that Rafael Grossi and his colleagues left Kursk nuclear power plant without making any statements. Just information come out that they will visit Kiev in a relatively short time, and Grossi will have a talk with Zelensky. But yet again, as I predicted, by the way, in previous updates, he did not say nothing about involvement of the Kiev regime in these strikes against nuclear power plant, and he did not said the truth that Kiev regime is actively engaged in nuclear terrorism. I'm truly surprised, by the way. I'm truly surprised that Russia is not demanding Rafael Grossi to be removed from IAEA. I just don't get it, man. Truly. Everybody understands that this little bitch is working for CIA, this dirty prostitute, Rafael Grossi. And for whatever reason, Moscow is not demanding this criminal to be removed from IAEA, man. Why, for God's sake? Why? I don't know. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, how are you gonna comment this, man? RT is also reporting that Poland is, according to Deputy Defense Chief, Poland is in state of hybrid war. Poland has slipped into a state of hybrid war aimed soaring tensions with Russia and its key ally Belarus. Polish Deputy Defense Minister Cezary Tomczuk has said. Tomczuk made the remarks on Monday while speaking at the high-level panel on Poland's security situation, suggesting that his country has already entered the state just below the level of actual war. What we are facing in Poland today is the factor hybrid warfare, and we can say directly that Poland is in a state of war today, but in a state of hybrid warfare, he stated, as quoted by PAP news agency. And Poland definitely is engaged in this proxy war against Russia. At this point, most likely thousands of citizens of Poland have been exterminated in the zone of special military operation. Criminals that was fighting on behalf of Ukrainian Nazis and the terrorists. And many more will be exterminated, obviously. And if Nazi leadership of Poland, by the way, extreme Russophobes and the Nazis in Polish leadership were expecting that there will be no retaliation from Russian side, they were big time mistaken. And they should watch their back, I will suggest. They want to be our enemies. Okay, it's their choice, but they should watch their back, you know, because usually we deal with our enemies with no mercy. Usually, by the way, not always, but quite often, our enemies finish their lives being exterminated like that. Anyways, as you can see, by the way, I have no sympathies to anybody that is even loosely connected with their enemy forces, and therefore I could not care less about Polish leadership, by the way, and in whatever hybrid war or whatever situation Poland is getting in. You know, if they want to be our enemies, they welcome, man, more than welcome. We will take care of you. Don't worry about it. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that, interesting statements was made by head of Georgia's anti-monopoly bureau, Rajden Kuprashvili. I translated this news, by the way, to be more precise, and I will just read it for you. The head of their anti-corruption, anti-monopoly, anti-corruption, yes, anti-corruption, head of anti-corruption bureau of Georgia, Rajden Kuprashvili, spoke about the fact of non-transparent foreign funding of their opposition parties in Georgia before the parliamentary election on October 26. The Vzгляд newspaper correspondent reports from Tbilisi. And Tbilisi is, of course, capital of Georgia. Most political parties do not fully or partially disclose their financial income. Their election campaigns may be financed by foreign donors, he stated. According to him, among the parties that have not disclosed their sources of funding are Saakashvili's United National Movement, and Saakashvili, this criminal, is of course former president of Georgia. This mass murderer and criminal, by the way, while he was a president, issued a decree to take my citizenship, and that happened on 24th of December of 2009, and decree number was 407, I believe. And after that, I was a stateless person for more than a decade, and it was not nice, absolutely not nice. So therefore, I see Saakashvili and all these criminals in the so-called opposition in Georgia as my personal enemies, and I hope all of them will be neutralized, because that is in best interests of Georgian society and Georgia as a state. But anyways, let's continue with this news. So according to Kuprashvili, head of Anti-Corruption Bureau in Georgia, among the parties that have not disclosed their sources of funding are Saakashvili's United National Movement and other leading opposition forces. The ruling Georgian Dream has passed their inspection without any compliance. So meanwhile, ruling party undergo all the checks and they pass this inspection from Anti-Corruption Bureau. Also, Kuprashvili noted that funds may be received by NGOs also associated with these parties. And I reported about NGOs, by the way, quite a while ago. And according to Georgian sources, vast majority of these NGOs are not disclosing anything at all about their activities, not just about finances, but significant number of them not disclosing programs that they are working for, they are operating on. They are not reporting even about personnel that is involved in these NGOs, which is, I mean, absolutely unbelievable. And that's why basically this foreign agent law was adopted by Georgian parliament to deal with this black hole eventually that was created by Western ruling class, US especially, US secret services and their political leadership especially, because it's the US mainly that finances all this so-called opposition and NGOs. But not just US, because some other countries from West are also involved in this, obviously. So such schemes for receiving funds from abroad pose a threat to a fair election process, according to Kuprashvili, which is absolutely true. The head of the Anti-Corruption Bureau reported on their opposition holding a democracy festival in Georgia with the support of the Danish Institute for Parties and Democracies, and noted that the process of collecting evidences is underway on this matter. So as I said, by the way, it's not just US, mainly it's US. 70-80% of funds for the so-called opposition in Georgia and their NGOs goes from US taxpayers. But some other countries from collective West also are involved in attempts to manipulate in internal policies of the country, including Denmark, as you can see here. And this person, by the way, what is his name? Kuprashvili also called on international observation missions, including their American National Democratic Institute, NDI, by the way, and also International Republican Institute, which is IRI, to make public information about their grants that they basically transfer to certain forces to Georgia. And when it comes to NDI and IRI, by the way, NDI is a tool of Democrats in US to influence other countries, to intervene in other countries' internal policies, and IRI is a similar stuff, but connected with Republicans. So this is two sides of one coin, basically, and both these institutions are, of course, branches of the CIA. How else, right? And according to Kuprashvili, international observers must be neutral and objective, and events they finance should not be held in support of political parties, which is absolutely correct. But I mean, Kuprashvili is so mistaken if he thinks that these statements will do much to influence the attitude of the Western ruling class or collective West towards Georgia and the current ruling party of Georgia, Georgian Dream. And me personally, 110% convinced, by the way, million% that West will use, Western ruling class will use these upcoming parliamentary elections in Georgia on October 26th to destabilize country. They will use their assets in Georgia, so-called opposition, NGOs, media outlets that they control, so-called media outlets. And they will use all of them and do everything they can to destabilize Georgia, conduct regime change, establish in power their puppets that will sign up for anything. And then, of course, Western ruling class will sacrifice Georgia as they did with Ukraine and will use Georgia as a sort of Taran or smaller second front against Russia. So Georgian society and Georgian leadership, also security services, should be ready, by the way. Should be, they have to, because I doubt that Georgia will manage to survive another color revolution or that kind of garbage, man. Georgia barely survived ruling of the Saakashvili. And if those criminals will once again gain power in Georgia, then I'm afraid this former Soviet Republic will end up in a very dark place. Let's continue with some other news. For example, RT is reporting that EU member may host foreign criminals to boost budget. I mean, and this is serious stuff, by the way. This is not some kind of joke. So Estonia, the superpower of EU, which is run by Nazis and the criminals, by the way. This is also factual. In Estonia, if you want to see parade of the Nazi collaborants, you have to go in Estonia, by the way. You will see. Nazi collaborants are marching on streets of Estonia, also Latvia and Lithuania, by the way. And for them, it's okay. For leadership of Estonia, and I guess for public of Estonia, for citizens, it's okay that collaborants to mass murderers are proudly marching around, or if it's nothing. So that's the state of these Baltic so-called states, by the way, including Estonia. So this quasi-state, Estonia, could rent out its prisons and host criminals from other countries to generate revenue for the state budget. Justice Minister Liisa Pakosta has stated, the plan comes as the Baltic state prepares to discuss spending cuts and tax hikes as a part of 2025 state budget. In an interview with the public broadcaster ERR on Sunday, Pakosta said she had submitted a memo on the jail rental proposal to the cabinet of discussion. The plan would generate at least 30 million euros, which is roughly 33 million US dollars in revenue a year for the state. The justice minister claimed Estonia is in such a great place, in such a great place, and I'm being ironic, of course, that they are willing to host, to rent basically their penitentiary system to host criminals from, I guess, all around the world to gain some 30 million euros, by the way. I mean, this is insane. This is not normal, but normality is prohibited in Estonia, by the way, and these Baltic quasi-states. Lithuania, Latvia, don't think they are any better, by the way. They all are same, though. I wonder how it was even possible that this Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania was a part of Soviet Union. They are so different, by the way, from us. In every way possible, by the way. I'm quite sure they are decent citizens of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. They are decent human beings there also, obviously, but majority, in my personal opinion, majority are just disgrace of humanity. And that's why they have these Nazis, by the way, in charge since the collapse of Soviet Union, right? If majority were decent human beings, they will never vote for Nazis, by the way. No matter what, they will never vote or promote Nazis and the Nazism, right? I mean, you tell me if my understanding is wrong, by the way. Only in the Nazi majority, Nazi elements can gain popularity and power, right? It is what it is, and Estonians, Lithuanians, and Latvians yet again, I'm talking about majority. I'm not talking about everybody. They are famous for their xenophobia. and racism, by the way. If you are living in Europe and you have ever deal with them, you know what am I talking about, because I lived in Europe. I lived 4 or 5 years in England a long time ago, and first time I met with the citizens of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia there, and I was a bit shocked how racist those people were, by the way, and the xenophobes, you know. Anyways, that's a whole different topic for different time. Let's continue with this news, and I will end this update now. RIA Novosti is reporting that a president of Russian Federation had a phone conversation with the Prime Minister of India, Modi, and which is good news on its own. Obviously, it is good to see cooperation between Moscow and New Delhi. And one of the topics of discussion was a recent visit of the Modi into Ukraine and his expression, his understanding of the situation. So probably Russian president listened to Modi about his experience in Ukraine, and maybe they exchange opinions how one can, on the topic, how one can even talk to someone like Zelensky or his criminal associates, because I'm quite sure Modi is still washing his hands for shaking his hand with Zelensky, man, that dirty animal. And Zelensky is a dirty fucking bitch, man, right? Sorry for my French, but I have no respect for such creatures, man, like Zelensky and his criminal Nazi terrorist associates, man. It is what it is. So, okay, it is good that Russian president and India's prime minister are in touch, and they are on very friendly note. They have friendly relationships, and they can call each other just about any time they want and discuss some serious issues. So it's all good, by the way. It's all good, and I guess I'm gonna end this update on that. Well, quite long update, by the way. Quite long update. But well, it is what it is. Sorry that you know, I was a little emotional at times, but I'm a human being also, and I also have emotions, by the way. And if I promise anything to our community, I promise to be real, right? And I am. So if I'm emotional, then I'm emotional. What can I do about it, man? Although I try to keep my emotions to myself, but sometimes, I mean, when you are talking about those Nazis in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, or in Ukraine, by the way, it really not that easy to keep your cool, because these are disgraceful individuals, by the way, that are in charge there, right? And unfortunately, significant number from the public there are in support of those criminals and the Nazis, and therefore those people are also like them, right? Which is disturbing, which is really disturbing, but yet again, what you gonna do about it? Although when it comes to Kyiv regime, Russia is doing, by the way, Russia is demilitarizing and denazifying this former Soviet republic, that's for sure. But when it comes to Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, I guess it's job of Brussels or EU member states to bring those xenophobes to their senses. But will they? I don't think so, because nowadays being Russophobe is like a norm in the collective West countries, isn't it? For almost entire political class, and for very many people from the public also. Unfortunately, once again, but okay, that's been said, hopefully you will find this video informative, interesting, useful, maybe somewhat entertaining. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything, any topic will do, to at least try to deal with their algorithm. And for very same reason, if you can, please share links to my channels on internet, on any of the platforms that you are actively using, or with your friends in real life, by the way. And finally, if you think my channels are interesting, useful, and they deserve to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support my work. All the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Once again, dear friends, sorry if at some points I was a bit emotional. I don't like that, but I mean, there is no way I'm gonna record this update again, so therefore it is what it is. But I want you to know that I'm not happy with my work whenever I'm getting too emotional. It's just, you know, it's a part of being human, right? So okay, this is it for now. Have a great day and take care. And dear friends, later on today, I want to say to our community, for our Patreon and Boosty community, that today, later on, or maybe tomorrow, in the first half of the day, I will share on Patreon platform and the Boosty platform new episode of Behind the Scenes, and hopefully you will find it interesting also. So yes, this is it for now. Have a great day and take care.